Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety. And it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. I hope you're all good, guys. I hope you are all good. So it's summer holidays here in the UK. We're in the depths of the holidays. So if you've got little ones at home, if you're trying to work around the school holidays, I don't know actually whether other countries take the holidays the same time as us. I'm assuming some of Europe does, because I know whenever we've been away at this time of year, there's other European families there with kids at school age. But it's such a wild concept, isn't it? Sure I heard somewhere we started doing school holidays initially so that the kids at school age could help bring in the harvest. This is obviously the time of year when farmers start harvesting their, I don't know, what would you call it? Their crops. And it used to be so that the children could help with that. Now, don't know about you, but I don't know any young family members that have recently been called up to help with the harvest. So just seems like a wild concept. I know so many people in like my friends and family that are having to navigate childcare and struggle through working, both parents working at this time of year. So if that is you, I am sending love and prayers, and may we get through it. May we get through it the next, 3 or 4 weeks that are left of the holidays. And for those of you that have had breaks, been away, you've got something to look forward to, going abroad maybe. I mean, the weather in the UK has been quite nice this week. So if you had a little staycation, then you're probably struck quite lucky with the weather. So I hope you're all having a fab time, making the most of it, making memories, and getting a well-deserved rest and having a break. So this week I'm going on a bit of a wing and a prayer, to be honest. I haven't got any notes. And the reason for that is this isn't really a subject that needs like science-backed knowledge or needs research or quotes or data. It's really something that I've just observed recently in my own life, and I've had conversations with others about. And it's just worth, I think, sometimes talking about it and creating, I don't know, just that thought process, because I think sometimes, and I know this is the case for me, we will like think something or feel something, and then we don't articulate it or talk about it with anyone, and then we can feel like we're the only one that's doing it. It could be anything. So what I'm referring to this week is, I guess, kind of like embedding, integrating, embodying knowledge and the things that we learn into our own lives, rather than just taking it on, listening. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm so grateful for everyone that listens to these podcasts, tunes in, that engages with my social media content, gives feedback, all of that stuff. But actually, if you're not doing anything with the knowledge or with the lessons, with the learnings, then it's kind of pointless, And this came to light and came to conversation in my own life recently, because I think it's really, really easy to become like a collector of knowledge and a collector of books and a collector of self-development lessons and teachings and knowings, and actually really never do anything with it. And I've kind of fallen into that trap a little bit myself recently. So I've talked about the book club that I'm part of, and that book club it's incredible. There's about 3,000 of us in it now, predominantly female, but actually there are some men. But we do a different book every month, and it's not that you have to buy the book, but buying the book, reading it, and then listening to the podcast is kind of the vibe. It's kind of what we do it for. It's kind of how we do it. But you can choose to buy the book, or you can choose not to buy the book. Now, last year I didn't buy most of the books because I listened to the podcast. I was super busy and I just didn't feel that the need to buy. I think I might have bought one of them actually, thinking about it. But listening to the podcasts that Fran, the lady that runs it, does it was enough for me at that point. But this year, there's been quite a few books that I've really resonated with. So whether it's been at the point of actually doing the book choice, doing the poll and choosing the book, and I've thought, yeah, that sounds really good, or whether it's actually been as we've gone through the first few days of the podcast and she's referring to things that are in the book that she hasn't read out, or exercises, etc. And then I've thought I probably need to buy this. And a couple of them, it's taken a couple of weeks to come. So by that point, we're like a couple of weeks into reading it. So it's either a case of play catch up or read it at another time then. And so what I found's been happening is I've been listening to the podcasts. I've been really resonating with what we've been talking about. So we've done a book on what does success look like to you, and how do you integrate that into your life to become successful in the way that you would describe success. We have done a book about regaining kind of feminine power and being in your like goddess energy. We are currently doing a book called Let It Be Easy, which is all about little snippets of life lessons that you can just take on board. It's one of those books you can open it at any page, read the page, and it's a little life lesson or little bit of knowledge that you can take through your day or your week. So that one, it's not kind of happened with as much, but I found myself buying them and then not actually reading the book, still just listening to the podcast, and therefore not doing any of the exercises, not really embedding the knowledge. And no sooner have I thought, oh my God, that's such a great lesson or a great point, I've forgotten it and I've not done anything with it. And this happens so much. Like, I am a serial book buyer, whether that is self-development books, whether it's fiction books. I've got a whole bookcase downstairs of probably books that I've read 50% of. Well, actually, books that I've read 50% of, and also I've only read 50% of the bookcase. So whether it's been that I've just flicked through and then never finished it, or whether it's that I've just actually never really started it, I've just thought it would look like a good idea at the time. And it's one thing, isn't it, knowing the stuff, but if you don't do anything with it, it's a bit bloody pointless. And I'm not sat here saying that every single one of these podcasts is going to resonate with you, or that every single book that you buy is going to resonate with you. But if you're listening to something or you're reading something and it does, you're going to increase your success or your life probably like tenfold by actually actioning it and integrating it and doing something based on that piece of information. Having the knowledge doesn't actually do anything. It's like having, I don't know, a really amazing set of knives to cook with and still using your old blunt knives to cut up your meat or your veg or whatever. It's great having those knives, but what are you doing with them? If you're not actually utilising them, it's kind of pointless. So the concept of this is I guess one that you can apply to anything. It's you know, anything in life, having the knowledge is one thing, doing something with it is another. But actually in the context of sobriety, it really, really takes on a life of its own. It's really interesting. Because I think what's happened, just being really honest in my life, is when I first started venturing into the idea of removing alcohol, for those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. It was something that I threw myself into. I think, you discover a new concept, your eyes are opened, you try something, experiment with how it makes you feel, it works, you run with it. Well, I do anyway. I don't know if anyone else is like that, but I will literally devour every book, listen to every podcast, follow everyone on social media. And actually at the time I was embodying that knowledge, because I was taking it, and by embodying it, what I mean is I was integrating it into my life. I was making it work for me. It was something that there was concepts and things within what I was reading and listening to that maybe weren't as relevant, but then there was things that I really resonated with that I then took through into my own life. So managing peer pressure, for instance, managing social occasions, really understanding what alcohol does to your body, understanding the education on it and the science, and really taking that through into my own life by reminding myself of that stuff every single time I had a craving and wanted to drink. And I did that for the whole first 100 days. And then I had a drink again. We went to a social occasion and I had a drink again. And then throughout the rest of last year, I was constantly taking like bigger breaks. Not bigger breaks than the first time, but I'd take like a good month or two off, and then I'd drink again, and then I'd take time off, and then I'd drink again. And it was never, the drinking part never went back to what it was like before, because I'd got all this new knowledge. But it was almost like I just kind of blocked it off and shelved all the stuff that I'd learned, because I wasn't reminding myself of it. I wasn't in the trenches in that world. I hadn't integrated it for long enough for it to just become my lifestyle. And that's kind of what's happened this year. This year I sort of wanted to play around with what my relationship with alcohol now was, and could I maybe moderate? Could I drink less? And the answer to that has been yes, actually. I have definitely had a much more positive experience. But again, I know all this stuff. I know all of the science. I know everything that has been taught to me and told to me and that I've listened to and I've picked up on. And yet I've chosen not to integrate it into my life, and chosen not to do as much with it and action it, which as a result has meant that I have had more occasions where I've drunk this year. Definitely never anywhere near as what I would have done pre-entering into this. But it was just a big reminder of, this stuff, you know what it does, you know the outcomes, you know everything that you've learned. And yet, because I'm not integrating it consistently and taking action and making it part of my lifestyle, kind of falls by the wayside. But if you're listening to these week in, week out, or just sporadically, and you're maybe following some people on social media that talk about either sobriety or self-development or both, and you're listening to other people's podcasts, that's all very well and good. And being armed with that knowledge is one thing, but are you actually doing anything with it? Are you actually integrating it? Are you making it a regular part of your life to take these lessons? And look, I'm not sat here saying every single piece of knowledge that you learn that you resonate with, you're going to be able to integrate into your life, because it doesn't work like that. We've got so much going on and we're overloaded with so much information. that sometimes you will hear something, think, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then by the time you've finished your day, you've forgotten what it was. I totally get that. Sometimes it will take me 3, 4, 5+ times of hearing something that it resonates with me to the point that I actually go on and do something about it. In fact, one of the chapters in the book that we're reading at the moment is all about comparison, and I'm going to do an episode on it because the way that this author phrased it has just landed with me, and it's flicked a switch in my mind. So now I know that I'm not going to have a choice but to embody that knowledge and integrate it into my life and do something every time I feel myself in comparisonitis. But I've heard it so many times. How many times have we heard comparison is the thief of joy? And now you just hear it that often that it probably just, rolls over you and you don't actually sit up and take notice of it. And so how she had phrased it, it was saying the same thing, but it was just phrased in a different way, and it really resonated. So I will do an episode on that because I do think it was really worthwhile sharing. But, we need to make these things make sense for us. There's no point in taking somebody else's example and thinking, yeah, I love that, but that it just isn't my life. Say somebody has given an example of, I don't know, buying an item or a house or a sports car or something that is just completely out of your price range at the moment. Or maybe they are talking about living a lifestyle that just doesn't resonate with you, doesn't excite you. If someone was talking to me about living, I don't know, on the 20th floor of a city apartment in the middle of London, I probably wouldn't resonate with it because that's so far from what I want my life to look like. But then another influencer or content creator or author or podcaster could talk about the same life lessons or knowledge, but be living in a country farmhouse or a house in the middle of the countryside with loads of land around it and animals, and all of a sudden they've got my attention. And so you need to make things make sense for you. You need to make things integrate. You need to make them work for your lifestyle. There might have been things that I've said through this podcast, maybe to do with launching a business, and you think, well, that's not for me. But actually the lessons about comparison, imposter syndrome, momentum, keeping things going could apply equally as well in your life, in your job, than they do in my business. Or maybe it's about fitness. And again, you're like, Nikki, the gym is not for me. Like, girl, that is not a vibe for me. But maybe you love country walks or Pilates, or maybe it's not fitness related at all, but you can apply the same lessons about consistency and tracking your goals and creating that compound effect in another area of your life. So you don't have to take the exact examples that are being given to you, but actually creating an integration and actioning this knowledge is so important, because otherwise you're just listening, and just listening is better than not listening, but actually taking action on it is the only thing that's going to move the needle. That's the only thing where you're going to message me in a year and be like, shit, look at how different my life is. Look at how different things are since I started implementing this. And this for me, like the start of my self-development journey, I listened to every fucker going. I probably got completely confused with all the different messages. I listened to people that resonated, people that didn't resonate, every single podcast under the sun. I bought every single book. Did I get any value from that? Yeah, of course, it opened my eyes. But actually now what I tend to do is to create my social feeds and curate, my social feeds and buy books and listen to podcasts by people that do resonate, and then try and take action on what it is that I've heard. That might just be one thing a week. If there's something that you've heard, let's take last week's episode, or was it the week before? One of the recent episodes about momentum. Let's just take that as an example. Say you really resonated with that and you're like, God, yeah, there's something in my life that I just need to get the momentum on. That thing could take you a month to get going. You might need to be integrating and embodying and reminding yourself of that lesson, of that information for the next month. What you don't want to be doing then is to be trying to integrate every other lesson, every single week that we talk about on here, everything that you read on social media, everything that you read in a book, because you're going to overload yourself. And as humans, we only have the capacity to take on so much information. I think it's something like we're getting 11 million pieces of information every second, like sensory information. And our reticular activating system, which I've done an episode on early on, I will link that down in the show notes, that is like our filter. So it filters out like what it is that we need to pay attention to. So like, for instance, if I said to you now, think about how your right foot feels, you're probably not paying attention to your right foot until I say that. And then all of a sudden it becomes of relevance to you, and that sensory information comes to the forefront of your mind. And it's the same with actions and lessons and teachings. You're only going to be able to embody and integrate what you resonate with, and it will only become of relevance to you when you're focusing on it. You're not going to take everything in. You're not going to be able to focus on everything all at once. So take one thing that you've learned recently. It could be from this podcast. It could be from an influencer or a content creator. It could be in a book. It could be from a friend or a relative that's giving you some amazing advice. If it resonated, what can you do about that? How can you create action in your life and really integrate that to the point that it becomes second nature? Because the only way as humans that we grow is by doing this work and really integrating it. There's certain levels of growth that come from listening and taking it in and understanding it. But actually really integrating it is probably the only way that you're going to grow. And again, from my personal experience this year, one of the things I've been trying to work on is my patience and trying to trust the process and let go of control. That is a really, really fucking hard trait to change when I've gone through almost 40 years of my life just being that way, that person. I was actually back home this weekend in the Midlands, and my nan is probably the biggest worrier, the most anxious person on the planet. If someone doesn't answer the phone, they've had a car crash. My uncle, who's nearly in his 70s, was out with his friends on the daytime on Saturday. And because he wasn't back at 5 o'clock when she called him, she phoned us saying, can you find out where he is? Has he had a car crash? Absolutely crazy. And me trying to tell her how she can change and give her those tools, it's like water off a duck's back. It's not happening. Like, it's just going in one ear and out the other, because she's done this for 96 years. You can change at that age. Neuroplasticity is possible at any age. It's easier when you're younger and you haven't embedded the lessons and habits and behaviours for so long, but you can do it at any age. But actually for me, the control and patience are things that I really, really need to focus on to change. And do you know what? It was so nice because my husband actually said to me the other night, I can't remember what we were talking about, but he said, do you know what? You're not like that anymore. Like, I've noticed a massive change. And for somebody so close to me to have noticed such a marked change in my behaviour, I knew that I'd integrated it. I knew that I'd done the work. And it's taken so bloody long. Like, this has not been easy. I've had so many challenges this year where I've wanted to throw in the towel or not, I've not felt like I could trust the process. And I have to keep reminding myself, and I have to keep doing that work on just having patience and knowing that everything's temporary. But it's not been easy. And so these things are not overnight. There are things that you can change overnight. Don't get me wrong. You can make the choice to change and it will change like that. But you have to keep doing the work to remind yourself and to continue with it. I can say now, right, that's it. I'm a bodybuilder and my mind's changed. My intentions have changed. I've got to do the work to put into becoming that version. I mean, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, by the way. That isn't a dream of mine. But I'm quite happy with the tiny little biceps that I've grown this year. But you can make that decision in your mind and change, but doing the consistent work and integrating it and taking action is the only way that you're going to actually get there. So the mindset can change. The action is what will create the actual physical changes. And so I just thought it was so worth reminding us all of that this week, because I know there's people that listen to this podcast who will message me and say, I love this week's episode. It was a great episode. And I've had friends when I've been out that have commented on, oh, I love the podcast. And when I say, oh, so what has changed? What have you done, differently in your life as a result of listening? They can't answer. They don't know, because actually what they're doing is listening passively. And like I say, always grateful. Everyone that tunes in every week, the download numbers, everything, I'm eternally grateful for. But what I really want, the impact I really want this to have, is for it to change your lives, to help you grow, to help you develop. And I'm doing it at the same time. Like, your girl is not sat here saying she knows it all. 100% not. Far, far from it. But I'm doing this work too, and just sharing the knowledge. And so if you can do something with that knowledge, everything that resonates, it resonates for a reason. And that's why taking the action is the way that you're going to grow. So let me know what has helped you to grow. Let me know the lessons that have resonated and that you have taken action on, or even the ones that maybe have resonated and you haven't taken action on, and that's what you're going to do this week. Let me know. I really, really want your feedback, guys. Like, this is your podcast, and genuinely, the thing that makes me happier than anybody in the world is when I get feedback, comments. Even if it was, look, I didn't get that, you didn't explain it in a way that landed for me, let me know, because I really, really want to be creating a platform that it's helping people to grow and to develop, and it's creating questions that I can help to answer or point you in the right direction of tools to help you answer. This is ever evolving and ever developing, just like we are. And so for it to evolve and develop how you want it to, I really want your input. So please do give me feedback. Please do let me know. And take some action this week. Pick one thing that you know you need to work on. Maybe go back and listen to a previous episode if I've covered an episode on that. And if I haven't, let me know, and I will absolutely do that. And work on it. Work on it and integrate it, and look at where your blind spots are. Look at who else does work in this area. If it's with regards to sobriety, there's a ton of accounts that the Hello Sunday Instagram account follows that can also help. There's some amazing content creators and sober experts on there. For the guys, there's a guy called Scott Thomas who I absolutely love. He was a Manchester party boy. He's got a PR and influencer agency, so always involved in like nightlife and events, and he's been sober for a while now. Really, really nice, down-to-earth guy. There are a ton of people that have been on this podcast, and equally those that I'm still trying to secure as guests who do amazing things in the sober community. So yeah, go away and have a think about what it is that you need to action, and let me know. Honestly, I love this stuff. This is the stuff that I live for, the growth and the development and the taking action. So I hope that's landed. I hope that's helped, and I cannot wait to see you all again next Sunday. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.